Another video, another masterclass, and this time we will be talking about binding vows. And why binding vows? Because yet again, I see people on the internet, on Twitter, on YouTube, they misunderstand the concept when it comes to binding vows, something that has been established since chapter 11 by Sukuna, the binding vow merchant himself. So let's just get into it. I'll explain. The whole thing is, I don't think you guys respect binding vows as much as I do. I love binding vows. I have always been telling people that Gege should use binding vows more often. Ever since the Tokyo Colony #2, when it was Hikari versus Kashimo, I always felt like, okay, someone, if they exploit the loophole that a binding vow is, they can get so strong. And Sukuna is literally doing that. So I feel like even though people call him a binding vow merchant, me included, I feel like I love seeing what he's doing. I love seeing the explanation, and I just want to see more in the future. But that aside, let's get into it. I think you guys are familiar with the law of equivalent exchange. It is something that is used in FMA as well, right? And what a binding vow basically is, you give something and you gain something in return. So people, or sorcerers in this case, they restrict themselves, or they restrict a part of their abilities to gain something in return. And that's basically what Sukuna has been doing. That's basically what Nanami has been doing with his overtime, right? Chapter 102. This is a conversation between two siblings. Meimei asks her younger brother, do you know what the quickest way is to raise your level as a Jujutsu sorcerer? Which Wee replies with, that would be your life as a trade-off. Right, sister. Listen, this is also a give and take scenario or situation. In this case, you sacrifice your life, but the power you gain from that fact should be immense, because you're basically sacrificing yourself. The whole possibility to boost your power through binding vows should be exploited more. Sukuna, he introduced us to binding vows, and he is doing it himself to an unimaginable level. So you have something to understand. A binding vow, they can be used to customize a specific aspect of a technique. This is what Sukuna has been doing all this time, and it's being explained to us in real time, and people are calling him a binding vow merchant. What if he is? What does it matter? He is exploiting the possibility to expand on the power of his technique. Why wouldn't people do this if it's possible? Take Nanami for example. Nanami's overtime. What happens with him? His overtime grants him a greater amount of cursed energy when he's working in overtime, in exchange for limiting his regular levels of cursed energy when he's not there in overtime. And let's not forget this one, Hikari versus Kashimo. Kashimo literally tried to blow Hikari up with a steam explosion, but what did Hikari did? In the spur of a moment, right? He shifted the cursed energy, protecting a limb, so essentially sacrificing it to protect the rest of his body against the steam explosion, right? In the spur of a moment, he decided to do this through a binding vow, which made him win the fight. Moving on to Mahito's instant spirit body of distorted killing, this is also a binding vow. According to Mahito himself, this makes his body 200% tougher than his original form. This is according to his own estimates, so don't believe it or take it with a grain of salt, but what you should know is that Gege himself said in the fanbook that if Mahito was at full power during his fight with Yuji in this form, he would have torched him. So the binding vow further increases his toughness in exchange for halting his metamorphosis. So yes, why not exploit what you gain from a self-imposed binding vow? Especially when Kanjaku explained in chapter 79, when breaking a binding vow with oneself, the worst thing that can happen is losing what was gained. So now you have to understand, what Sukuna is doing in the recent chapters is just exploiting the possibilities, the capabilities, the potential of a binding vow or his technique by restricting what he doesn't need to gain something that he does need. But hear me out, gang. Hear me out. This is not the end of a binding vow. Yet again, chapter 11 and chapter 79, I will use these two examples to explain something that is also very important in JJK. This is a binding vow with someone else. That is basically a contract that you form with someone else. Sukuna in chapter 11 explains to Yuji that it doesn't matter if he believes him or not. It's a binding vow. He will be the one who's getting punished if he breaks it. We don't know. At this point, we don't know what the punishment is. We still don't know what the punishment is. But it's explained in chapter 79 by Kanjaku that a binding vow or a contract that you set up basically with someone else is a whole different beast, because the punishment when you break it is unknown, even to these two old ass sorcerers. At the time of recording, I don't know, or we don't know what the penalty is for breaking a binding vow with someone else, but I believe it's somewhat similar to karma. So karma comes back for you and the punishment comes back for you as well. So it depends on what the punishment is going to be like, but I think it's going to have the same concept as karma. So that's what we know about a binding vow with someone else. After you fulfill your part of the deal, you can do whatever, try and kill each other, whatsoever, mind your business. It is what it is. Guys, before I wrap this up with a little theory, I promised you guys a masterclass, so I will not move on without mentioning heavenly restriction. And yes, you might know about this, but not everyone does. So heavenly restriction is also some sort of or somewhat a binding vow. It's more a extreme binding forced on a person upon birth. For example, Toji, Mekamaru, and Maki. At this moment, we know about two heavenly restrictions. The one where your body is blessed, but you have less cursed energy or no cursed energy, or your body is messed up like Mekamaru's, but you have an abundance amount of cursed energy. And the reason why I'm saying less to no cursed energy is because it's possible to alter your HR, your heavenly restriction. For example, we don't know about Hoji, but we know about Maki. She had to think about what she needs to cast or discard to become similar to Toji. And we have seen her go through the process of losing what she had to become who she is right now. And yes, I have seen people complain about binding vows and that it's an ass pull whatsoever, even though it has been established since the early days of JJK. And even though everyone hates it, or not everyone, a majority of the people on Twitter or YouTube don't like it because of Sukuna using something that is accessible to him, please remember, it is accessible to everyone. It is accessible to everyone. Even Todo used a binding vow, a self-imposed binding vow, to make Boogie Woogie stronger. It's not just Sukuna. It's accessible to everyone to make yourself stronger. So this is where my theory comes into play. I think Yuji is gonna restrict the target of Shrine on just Sukuna and Cursed Spirits themselves. Just on them two, or those two, you know? Why? Because this is all because of his cock mentality and what he said before the Gojo versus Sukuna fight. He would do anything or eat anything to kill that creep being Sukuna. And I don't think it's just limited to eating whatever. I think he's gonna use a binding vow to give a boost to his curse technique, his own shrine, to deal with Sukuna. This is just a theory. I don't know what he's gonna gain, but I think this is gonna happen. Tap in. Anyways, I felt like I had to make a video about this. It was getting out of hand, and I know people might just be overreacting. I do that as well, but let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Leave a like if you want to. Subscribe. I will make more videos, try and be consistent, and yeah, peace out.